Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. Jen's with us today, and we're going to go over some kid stuff today, right?
Yes.
Specifically, kids being kids.
Yes.
It takes me back to the ideas of Toys R Us. I remember when I was a kid, I loved
Toys R Us kid, yes.
Kids go on Amazon now. It's like Toys R Us in their palm of their hands now all the time.
Yeah, I actually have kids that will take mom's phone, and she's like, I have a place where I can put stuff that if I want it, and mom will buy it for me later.
You have one right now that's doing that? That is hilarious.
She's like 8.
It's like you have your own shopping cart, right?
Yeah.
Man, if I had my own shopping cart at a Toys R Us.
I mean, I put a bunch of stuff in my cart, and then I kind of edit it.
There you go.
Decide what I really need.
Right. Well, in this case, we're talking about kids being children in divorce and giving them permission to just be children and not take on the roles of being a parent. We've talked about parentification before, but taking on roles that are just way outside of their scope.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the first part of this.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is you say, let's keep adult things to the adults.
Yeah.
Describe more about that, Jen.
I mean, it kind of goes along with our discussions we've had on parentification, but kids don't necessarily need to know everything that's going on. And when you have parents who are stressed and talking, they tend to talk and they overshare a lot. They give too much information to the kids. It does two things. One, it puts the kids in a position to act as a parent or a friend or a different role than a child. But it also does it creates a drama factor. And kids kind of like drama. They have enough drama at school. Let them be drama at school and no drama at home. The problem is it gets them where they're interested. Now they want to know more and they're going to ask more questions. And if you're not paying attention to what you're saying or how you're saying it, it can really get into the way of what you really want for your kids.
Yeah, what's the saying? You take the drama to the mama, you take the bother to the father.
Yeah.
Is that how they do it?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I'm teasing. Yeah, these kids.
But it helps with their, you want to keep your roles straight. You want to keep the kids in the role of being a kid.
It sounds like you're saying that parents that have really good boundaries when it comes to what would be considered an adult matter versus a child matter.
Yes.
Do you suppose that kids are asking questions that are more adult matter in nature when they go through divorce?
Oh, yeah, totally. Because they see things differently. They've seen their parents arguing and fighting, and they know something's going on, and they want to know, well, what's being done about it.
Well, and I think that goes back to something I talked about, I believe it was with Janan and maybe even Armando too, is that kids crave that security.
Yeah.
And so when they see things that are breaking down, doesn't it rise to the level of some level of insecurity for the child? And so to re-secure themselves, they want to go ask questions. They become extremely curious about what's going on. And so then the parent might have this obligation of feeling like they need to share things with them. Or what's the one I hear all the time is, well, they need to know the truth.
Oh, God, yeah. Parents say that all the time. They need to know the truth. But do they? Do they need to know what your opinion of the other person is? I think that's where it gets a little tricky. When it's an adult thing, your relationship with your ex-spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse and your relationship with your kids are completely different.
Say that again, Jen. I really want you to be very specific about how you say that because I think that's an important point.
Yeah,
I don't know if enough people understand.
Basically,
what you mean.
Your relationship with your soon-to-be ex-spouse or you're already divorced and your exes, and your relationship with your kids are completely separate. And I think a lot of times there gets to be a gray area where, oh, well, they need to know how their dad is. Well, that's how they are to you. That's not necessarily how they are to the kids.
Yeah, you're talking about two different types of relationships. You're talking about a marital relationship and a parental relationship.
And they're totally different.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I had a mom once say to me, they were a horrible husband, but they're a great father.
Yeah.
And that's kind of alluding to what you're saying is they were able to see the dynamics that were different. Now, this doesn't mean they might be a horrible husband and a horrible father, but who gets to judge what kind of parent they are?
The kid.
Do you think parents forget that in divorce?
Yeah, totally. They want to protect. I want to protect them. I don't want them to have to deal with this version of that person. And I'm like, but this is one of the things I struggle with sometimes. But I've told parents, I said, you have to let them see that person for who they are, even if that hurts. They have to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm just gonna give my personal opinion on this. If a parent comes in and says, I believe my child is unsafe. And when they use that word, there's a difference between they're uncomfortable and they're unsafe. And I think it comes up a lot.
It does.
The discernment of those two things. But when a child is unsafe, we're talking about physically, maybe even emotionally. And emotionally is to me is a little bit kind of a rocky road.
Yeah.
Because when your kid goes to school, they're prone to being bullied. They're emotionally unsafe all the time. It's almost like we need to help kids develop a level of resilience.
Yes.
However, when they're dealing with a parent, and that parent is psychologically doing things to them, that does make them emotionally unsafe in some ways, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
But you're under the impression that parent would have an agenda to manipulate that child into that child becoming more adult in nature, and it's done. And here's the difference: it's done with intent.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of times in divorce, parents overshare. You said earlier, oversharing. Yeah. Parents are oversharing and doing things unintentionally. I don't think they actually have an agenda as much as they feel like they have a duty.
Yeah.
And the issue with that is that they're doing damage that they don't realize they're doing, and sometimes it's irreversible.
Yes.
I think I had a parent. Well, actually, I know I did. I had a parent who was, in my opinion, unintentionally alienating. I know that's not a very popular thing. People think alienation's always with intent. But in this case, this parent was unintentionally doing things that were alienative in nature.
Yes.
And when the parent got called out on it in court, counselors, custody evaluators, whoever, all these people involved were calling it out. The parent did stop. Like, they changed the way they approached it.
Yeah.
But they had been doing it for so long, it was almost irreversible.
Yeah, because at that point, the kid, it kind of goes into what we're talking about next, because the kid has an opinion.
Let's talk about that.
Kids are people. I think sometimes parents forget that kids are actual people. They have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. They create their own. And what I see a lot is, well, they're saying that because their dad said that, or they're saying that because mom told them to. And I'm like, but what we're forgetting is they're people. They make their own decisions sometimes. They make their own thoughts, their own beliefs. And when you have someone who's even unintentionally alienating, you're creating a space for them to have a belief that may not be true.
Yeah.
About the other person. Allowing kids to be themselves means let them think.
Yeah, I think that, and if I can throw this out there for parents, one of the things I did in therapy a lot, and it seems to work really well, is when the parent will come to me and say the same thing. We call it parroting. So a child is parroting another parent. And so the parent who's typically reunifying with the child will say, they sound a lot like their dad, or they sound a lot like their mom.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll say, well, how can you ask that to the child in a way so that you're not taking away their voice versus maybe someone else's voice that you think it could be? And a lot of parents don't really know how to navigate that. So I've taught them to say things like, this sounds really important to you, or you sound like this sounds like something that matters a lot to you.
Yeah.
So they'll say something like, I hear what you're saying. It sounds like your mom, or it sounds a lot like your dad. And I just want to make sure I'm not getting it wrong. If it's mom, I'll talk to mom, or if it's dad, I'll talk to dad. But if this is your feelings and thoughts, I want to make sure I'm talking to you about it.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're creating a separation between those two lines, which is one is the kid being the kid, what's coming from the kid, even if it matches the parent.
Yeah.
Or is it coming from the parent? That's how you discern it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I struggle with this sometimes with some of my clients, especially the teenagers. Teenagers know what they think. I have, a couple of a mom and a daughter that I've worked with for a while, and one of the struggles is mom always thinks what the kid is saying is coming from dad because it's similar to what dad said. And the kid's like, no, this is how I feel. And part of that is trust. You've got to trust your kids. If they're telling you something, trust that it's coming from them.
Well, let me
for
say
at least a point of it. And then, we can get into, especially with therapy, we can get into it a little bit more delineated, but give your kids some space to be themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of times where parents struggle is they'll get, I can get parents to a place of recognizing that it's a kid's voice, but then the part where they're still stuck is it's an influence.
Yeah.
So they'll say, well, it is their voice, but they're being influenced by that, to have that voice. What I will say on this podcast for all the parents out there listening, you all have influence on your children. That's why they're kids. This is why this topic's so important about kids being kids, is because kids are influenced by a lot of things. They're influenced by the environment. They're influenced by their parents. They're influenced by siblings, friends. They're influenced by school teachers, counselors. There's a level of influence that's played because the kids are trying to understand. They are naturally curious beings. And there's an innocence built into children that we forget.
YouTube.
You mean kids are influenced by YouTube?
Oh, my God. So much YouTube.
My son, if he ever listens to this podcast when he's an adult, he's going to be mad at me, but my son, when he plays too much on his iPad, his behavior
goes out the window.
Well, he doesn't regulate himself well.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know how to say this. It's almost like he emotionally goes backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll do things where he'll get more agitated or upset, or he'll get more mouthy, like he'll pop off.
Yeah.
And so what I'm learning, and what I told him is, I just tell him the observation I made. People with kids, we spend so much time correcting behavior that we forget to go deeper than that with kids and say, hey, this is obviously causing an effect on you. You bring them to an attention of what you notice about how things have changed. So I'll tell you what I did to him. Oh, yeah. Here's what I did to him. I would say something like, I noticed that when you play your iPad a lot, you get a little bit more disrespectful towards me. And I'm just giving you an observation.
Yeah.
And what it does is it causes him to think.
Yeah.
And that's what you want your kids to do, right?
Yeah. Think for themselves.
So for these parents that are like not knowing how to navigate things with their children when they're going through divorce and letting kids be kids, it's okay to mention an observation.
Yeah.
But don't make it have a meaning. Just say, hey, I noticed this, and then let the kid describe it to you. Now the kid has the voice, but you're giving an observation versus saying you're wrong or this is being influenced by.
Also, when you do that, it kind of helps keep away that, argument starting, getting defensive and it becoming an argument.
Right.
That's not what I did. The response that we all give. I didn't do that. That's not what I meant. It allows you a little bit of breathing room. When I say trust your kids, trust what they think and how they respond. Letting someone know, you're really irritable when you first get home from school. Okay. Is there something we can do about it? Put it on that kid. Let them figure it out. Sometimes they need a break at the end of the day before they start doing homework, before they have to do chores, before they have to sit down to eat dinner. You give them a little bit of a break. It might help the situation.
Right. So I have a question for you then, Jen.
Yes.
How do we, parents, I'm going to ask as a parent, I'm going to ask you, how do we get to a place where we can remember how to let our kids be kids?
Regulating ourselves.
Well, explain that.
Well, I know one of the complaints I get a lot when I'm working with kids is, as soon as I walk in the door, mom's mad. And the thing I asked the kid, I said, what were you doing before that? Well, I was at school. So what is mom mad about? I don't know. So why are you assuming she's mad at you? It's the thought process, but the same thing with the kid. If they're irritable, it's not necessarily about you. It could be some kid on the playground pushed them and they were mad. It could be they failed a test or they didn't do as good as they thought they would. It could be their best friend is talking shit about them behind their back. Sorry, it's language. But, it could be anything. It's not necessarily about you. And maybe stepping back and realizing, okay, if I wasn't there and I don't know what's going on, maybe I should ask a different question. Is there something I can help you with?
You're teaching kids to do this with parents, or parents do this with kids?
Both.
Oh, wow.
It's both ways, because it's how that communication doesn't always happen. Well, if mom's mad about stuff and she starts venting, not realizing she's venting to her child who doesn't know anything about it and is not an adult, it puts a pressure on them. They're like, well, now I got to take care of mom.
Oh, wow.
Because mom's upset and I want to make her feel better. When the child really doesn't have a role in that, it should be the parent taking care of themselves at that moment.
Yeah, so parents take care of themselves and take care of their kids.
Yeah.
Kids take care of themselves.
Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
But in divorce, we get a lot of kids trying to take care of parents.
Yes.
And so you're saying if a parent self-regulates well,
it helps the kid.
that ultimately is what helps the child.
Yeah. It goes along with the idea of when you're on an airplane. I use this analogy all the time. What are the instructions? You put your mask on first. Then you put the kid's mask on. You have to take care of yourself first and not rely on your child to do it for you. And that's where, kids in divorce, they want to help because they see you stressed.
Right. And you say that, and it reminds me that the parent that seems to struggle the most in divorce with the kids is when their whole identity is wrapped in being just a parent.
And or a spouse. Yeah.
Yeah. If your identity's wrapped in that one thing.
You put all your pressure there.
Correct. And so when things break down or things go a different way, you have this really interesting response where you push yourself out, or you push the kid away from, their needs, because you're only focusing on the role that you think you might be losing, or the role that you have to maintain because your identity's wrapped in it.
Well, and honestly, with divorce, a lot of times that is what happens. Parents overcompensate. They think they have to overcompensate for the other parent who may not be there.
I need more, because that's a big part of permission for kids to be kids, is talk about the Is that one of the traps for parents?
Oh, totally.
Okay, so maybe we go through a list of, a couple things.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to parents to go, stay away from this. This is like a red flag for you. And if you come across it, it's almost like, when you go to the beach and they have the little thing that comes on the flag. The flag means don't get in the water. Yeah, don't get in the water, undertow, right? We're going to give them a flag.
Yeah.
That says, hey, we're about to hit an undertow. This is about to get dangerous. Okay. Yeah. What are some of the things that parents do that take away the ability of a child to be a child?
Helicoptering.
Explain it to them.
When actually I just worked on this case shortly in court, but one of the things that come up is allowing the kids space. I had some kids that were in here, we were talking with mom, and the kids were like, I just wanted to back off. Mom was constantly asking, what do you need? What can I do? How is this? What do you want to eat for lunch? What do you want to eat for dinner? They constantly asking questions of trying to overcompensate for the time that she has with them. She also would call repeatedly when they were with dad. And so the kids are like, just back off, mom. Just back off. And mom really, I worked with mom for a while, and she really took that to heart. What she found was when she backed off, after a couple of days of not calling or not saying, hey, what's going on? Her son is like, hey, mom, what's going on? He came to her. It gave him enough space to come back to her. And so when you overcompensate for the other parent, you think the other parent's not doing enough, and your entire identity is wrapped into that person. You are putting so much pressure on your kids that they have to do everything you want, or you're not going to be happy, that you don't really see it. And so being able to step back and say, okay, you have time, especially with teenagers, let them go. Let them do their thing. Let them go sit in the room and play on the phone.
Dare you let my kid go?
You leave them alone long enough, they're going to be like, hey, where you at?
Kid, don't you see that a lot of children, when they get into their teenage age, they are trying to find their own sense of identity?
Oh, God, yeah. They're trying to figure out who they are.
And that's sometimes what the push is.
Yeah. It's that they want independence.
Yeah. We call it what did Janan call it the other day? We were actually in session, and I loved what she told this parent. She said, you're involved in what we call the push-pull.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You push just to pull.
Yeah.
And the kid will do the same. Like, kids will play out they play out systemically what you haven't resolved yet.
Oh, yeah.
So it's almost like when you see the kids behaving a certain way through the divorce, they're just playing out what y'all broke. So it's almost like,
Well,
self-regulate, figure out how do I do this better for this child?
Yeah.
Right?
So that's the first thing, is just overcompensating where you don't need to.
Right.
Give them a little breathing room. Give yourself some breathing room. Good Lord, if that is all you're focused on is your kid,
Yeah.
How do you live?
I have an overcompensating parent who will say things like, I would love nothing more than dad to have, it was a mom.
Yeah.
She goes, then dad to have some more time with the kids, because then I could finally go on dates. I could finally have some time to myself. And I said to the parent, I said, well, when are you going on this date? And they looked at me and they go, I mean, no one's lined up. I don't have it. And I said, well, then it's never going to happen. You're saying, it's almost as if I'm trying to encourage, go get a date.
Yeah.
Then it becomes real.
Yeah.
Go live a life,
Well, and it's funny, actually, the kids I was working with, they were like, it's like mom doesn't have a life.
What do you mean?
Her whole life was them.
Okay.
And so they were like, we want her to go do stuff. Go see her friends.
They wanted to send mom away?
They wanted mom to go do stuff with your friends, go out, go get on a date. They want her to do something because they're like, she's got to have her own interests.
So who told mom this? The kids?
The kids.
So how did mom respond?
She's like, oh.
It surprised her.
It surprised her. But at the same time, she's like, but they're my whole life. I'm like, and that's where, we get into therapy of how you take care of ourselves.
I think I want the listeners to understand, and the viewers, that we're not saying that your children shouldn't be your whole life. We're saying your identity shouldn't be wrapped in.
And there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Being involved in your kid's life is fantastic. Yes, be involved, go to their stuff, include them, do all the things that you should do as a parent, teach them. But if that's all you do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you go to work, you have someone who works a lot. Their entire identity is wrapped up in work.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose focus of, the opposite of that parent, being the parent who's not available, not around.
Right.
And disinterested in their kids.
So I heard a story about eagles. Okay. I didn't come up with the story. Actually, Dave Ramsey, I think, tells this story too. But it's about eagles. Okay. And they said what eagles do is they build their nest for their babies with the thorns poking inward.
Okay.
I know it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they'll build this nest that protects the bird. They got thorns all around it, but there's thorns poking inward too.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is because the baby eagle eventually grows. They feed the baby eagle.
Yeah.
They care for it. It's in the nest way up in the tree to protect it. But as it grows and gets bigger, becoming an eagle itself, what's going to eventually happen to it if the thorns are poking inward?
It's going to hit them.
It's going to hit them.
Yeah.
It's comfortable or uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable.
Correct. It creates a level of discomfort for the bird that what does the bird have to do?
Adjust.
And the way that the bird adjusts inside the nest is to do what when it becomes uncomfortable?
Move.
Fly the nest.
Oh, yeah, get out.
Yes, it goes and does what it's supposed to do. It goes to fly. And so it's almost as if they're saying part of parenting is that there's going to be some discomforts.
Yes.
But isn't that designed to help them fly?
Well, and that kind of goes back to when you have one parent saying, parent A is very active, very involved, and parent B is not.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to overcompensate for that other parent. Well, that they're not available. They can't do this. They can't do that. I don't want them to go over there because they're going to be disappointed. The kids are going to be disappointed because that person can't do what they want. Let them go over there and see that, because they need to make their own opinion about what's going on. They need to learn how to deal with it. When you keep them from, in the sake of being safe, or not allowing them to be disappointed or upset, you're not teaching them how to deal with being disappointed and upset.
Mm-hmm.
It is like the baby bird. You're supposed to teach your kids to grow and be adults. When they get to be adults.
Yep.
Part of that is dealing with disappointment. People who don't do what they say they're going to do.
Right.
People who lie. If that's true, your kids will see it. I've talked to friends forever. I have friends that are divorced, and their kids growing up myself when I was growing up with parents that were divorced. There's a lot that goes on that, well, I don't want them to see that side of that person. Like, why not? Your kids are smart. They have the right to make their own opinion about their other parent. You don't get to tell them how to think.
Well, you can, and I think it's going to do you a disservice in the long run.
Yeah.
Kids will, you know what I see more kids do when that happens?
Mm-hmm.
When a child grows up and they're constantly being told how to think and how it should look, what they do to think for themselves is they have to rebel against it.
Oh, yeah.
To find their own identity, they have to go, how am I different than you to understand who I am?
Exactly.
And so eventually the kid grows up, becomes an adult, wants to do adult things, begins to pull away or separate. Yeah. Then they reflect backward and go, wait a second. I mean, did you think the same way about your parents as a child and as an adult, or did you think differently?
No. I know way more now.
Well, and the more that you know, the more you can actually understand, can't you? So some things you might look back at and go, I get it. I forgive that now. I get why they did what they did. But there may be other things you go back and go, what? Pardon my language, but what the hell were they thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Why? Yes, just so many questions sometimes.
Yeah, and then I think as an adult, you grow up a little bit and you go, you know, this is what I told a kid the other day. I said the hardest thing I had to learn to do as an adult was love my parent for who they are and not for who I wanted them to be.
True.
Because I will always be disappointed if I want them to be a certain way that they're not. And I expect that, you know?
I actually think that's actually a really good tip for parents, though. Love your kids for who they are and not who you want them to be.
Well, say it to them. Say it again, Jen.
If you can love your kid for who they really are and not who you expect them to be or want them to be or assume they are. Assuming is bad.
Who they want to become.
Who they want to become.
Yeah.
If you allow them that, you're going to get your relationship will go much, much further. Because the thing is, and I've learned this with kids, especially the older kids, when they've been dealing with divorce for 10 years with their parents and they're still fighting about stuff.
Yeah.
What they find is you have parent A who's trying to say, well, parent B does this, this, and this. Okay, well, then the kid finds out, well, yeah, they do that with you, but they don't do that with me. So now they're mad at both parents. They're like, well, no, this person's better at this, this, and this. Why are you telling me all these things? And it actually can revert back to, it can backfire on you where your kid no longer wants to be in that realm with you because now they realize you've been telling them stuff their whole lives that isn't necessarily true.
Some of the greatest counseling I've done with parents is when they both can see the strength in the other parent. It's almost as if they're going, this is where they're better than me at this.
Yeah.
I had these parents didn't agree on anything.
Yeah.
Other than this mom looks at dad and goes, Dad is freaking awesome at math.
Yeah.
Like when the kids struggle on math, I let dad help them because dad helps them. They do better. They get it. They understand the patterns in math. And I kind of smile and I said, how'd you figure that out? Well, it was like that in our marriage. And here's what's crazy. In most couples that are married, there were strengths. The wife had strengths. The husband had strengths. And the hurt got so much in the way.
Yeah.
They kind of forget that about each other. And that's how amazing if you guys go back to, I don't need to be strong in this area because they are.
Yeah.
Learning to dip into the strengths of the parents and how that helps the kids be kids.
Yes.
So how do you think that helps?
It allows them to show their strengths.
What do you mean?
The kids have strengths too.
Yes.
You know, they can be resilient. They can get over the hurt faster. They feel it the same way.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I see kids, they bounce back like that. And the parents are like, what do you mean they're okay? Like I'll see them for a while and they're here because their parents are divorced and they're fine.
Kids are so much quicker to forgive than adults.
They are. Because there's an innocence there. They forgive them because they know like this is not going to be long lasting. They realize it's going to change.
Yes, I'm going to write this down. Okay. No. Let me write this down because I'm going to go over these flags. Yeah. You said a couple things. So I'm going to help the parents say if you're in this water, right? The flag went up, get out of the water. We got an undertow. Helicoptering.
Yes.
Overcompensating. Having your identity wrapped in your role.
Yep.
So all you are is a parent. You're nothing else, right?
Yep.
And then passing your cynicism onto your kids.
Yeah.
It's like the kids are innocent, yes. And you have this nature to protect them.
Yeah.
But you're passing on your cynicism, your distrust onto your children instead of letting your children find that something is not accurate or well with the other parent.
Yeah.
Safety's different. But I think we've confused safety for discomfort.
Yeah.
Right? We got to use the correct language. And I think language,
being uncomfortable, you have to be uncomfortable to find comfort.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
Emotions, feelings. None of us like to be mad and angry and sad. We all hate our feelings. It's not, and that's just people in general. We don't like feelings. Nobody wants to have feelings. But guess what? You have them anyway.
My favorite is when people leave and they have what we call it the therapeutic hangover.
Yeah.
So they leave because it was like such a heavy session and it was a little hard, but they always come back a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because they actually did hard stuff.
Yeah.
Therapy's not supposed to be, oh, it felt so good. It's supposed to be like, that was a little tough, man, that conversation. And you leave, but you come back different, right?
Yeah.
You want that experience of, I saw something today or something clicked. My favorite's the light bulb moment when it happens in session.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. And I think it happens with what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to embrace the discomfort.
Yeah. To gain the comfort.
To gain the comfort. Oh my gosh, Jen. Are we leaving the listeners with that one?
Yes, I think we should. Because it goes back to the whole topic of allowing a kid to be a kid. Let the kid be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Let them deal with it. Let them find a way to get through the emotion.
Yeah.
And you may need to help them some.
Yeah. It's
Remind
okay.
them, breathe. Maybe let's go do some exercise. Let's go do something to get your mind off it.
Let's play.
Yeah, let's play a game.
That's what therapists
Something.
do.
Oh, I play all day. I color and play games. Even with some of my adults.
It works.
It does, because you need to be able to process it to get to the other side.
Yeah.
And being uncomfortable for a little bit, I think the biggest thing with feelings is understanding they're only temporary. They will change. You got to get through the discomfort part though first to figure out how to get to that other side. And that allows your kids to be themselves as much as possible.
And I would encourage you listeners and parents who are listening to this that even your own discomfort and how you regulate that is influential on how your child can regulate as well. And so going back to what you said is self-regulating is one of the most important things I think parents need to understand about how they can best help their kids be kids. Yeah. So a couple things I want to finish up with. I want to thank you all for being here. Number one, reminding you that children, the first thing that kind of Jen talked about is kids do not need to be overly informed and overshared.
Yeah.
Give them the peace that they need. Notice that most court orders that come out, we notice, have language in there that says we cannot share these things with the children. Please don't do disparaging remarks. They're telling you to keep your negative opinions to yourself and not to overshare. If I can just be any clearer,
very clear.
The court orders it that way, and they're not even in therapists, but they court order it on purpose because they know the damage it can create.
Yeah.
So what I want to say to you listeners, I want to thank all of you that have been listening on and catching the majority of our episodes. We've had phenomenal feedback. We want your questions. We want your feedback, good or bad or indifferent. Yeah. I just want to know how this is helpful to all of you. And I want to thank all of you for your just consistent love and passion for the learning that you want to do to become the best versions of yourself for your children. Thank you all for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so that you can always catch the new episodes. Every Tuesday, new episodes come out. We want you to stay in touch with us because we need actually some more ideas too. We would like some more ideas and topics that you want to hear. Yeah. So send it in. We want to talk about it. We want to get you the information and keep moving forward, everyone. Thank you.